Aisha was 32 when she began having panic attacks in the fruit section of the supermarket. It always happened between the apples and the bananas, for reasons she could never explain. Her breath would shorten. The lights would grow too bright. Her hands would sweat around the handle of the trolley. She would leave her basket half filled on the floor and walk out. Twice, she walked out without paying for the water bottle she had already opened. The second time, an old man in a gray shalwar camis picked up her water and paid for it himself, and did not chase her. She only noticed, when she looked at the receipt, the security guard had quietly slipped into her hand at the door. She was on paper doing well. She was a freelance translator working from a small flat on the 4th floor of a building where the elevator worked only in the mornings. She had clients in 3 countries. She earned enough. She was, everyone said, lucky to work from home. Nobody could see that her working from home meant she had not stopped working, in her mind, in almost 6 years. Her laptop was open when she woke and when she slept. Her phone was in her hand from the moment her alarm rang. She checked her email 11 times before breakfast. She replied to messages while brushing her teeth. She once cried in the shower because a client had used the word, unfortunately, in an otherwise polite email. She had begun to believe that this was simply what adulthood felt like, and that anyone who claimed otherwise was lying. The panic attacks began in the summer. By autumn they had moved from the supermarket to the bus, then to her bedroom, then to no particular place at all. Her doctor prescribed something. She did not take it. She was too anxious to add another thing to worry about. The turn began the day her mother's youngest sister came to stay for a month. Kala Farida was 61, unmarried, retired from a school where she had taught chemistry for 37 years. She arrived on a Sunday with one small suitcase and a jar of homemade pickle. She sat in Aisha's small living room and looked around with the calm attention of a woman who had seen many rooms and was not impressed or disappointed by any of them. "Show me where you work," she said. Aisha showed her the desk in the corner, the laptop, the second monitor, the phone charging on top of the notebook. Kala Farida looked at it for a long moment. Then she looked at Aisha's face. "Biddy," she said gently, "your mind is a room, and you have not opened a window in 6 years. Everything you have put inside is still inside. That is why you cannot breathe." Aisha wanted to argue. She wanted to explain about clients and deadlines and the way this economy demanded a certain kind of vigilance. But she also, quite suddenly, wanted to cry, so she did neither. She sat down on the sofa and said nothing. Kala Farida did not push. She simply began over the next weeks to do small, quiet things. The first morning she was there, she took Aisha's phone off the bedside table before either of them slept and put it in the kitchen. Aisha protested. Kala Farida said only, "It will still be there in the morning. You are not so important that the world will end in 6 hours without you." Aisha slept badly, then better, then well. On the 4th morning, she noticed she had not looked at her phone until she had finished her tea. It felt like an unexpected inheritance. The second thing Kala Farida taught her was one she did not say aloud. Every day at 11 in the morning, Kala Farida would make tea and carry 2 cups to the small balcony and sit and drink hers slowly, looking at the trees. She did not invite Aisha. She simply left the second cup on the small stool beside her chair. For the first 3 days, Aisha stayed at her desk. On the 4th day, she came out. She sat on the plastic chair. She drank the tea. Kala Farida did not say anything. They watched a crow argue with a smaller bird about a piece of bread. When the tea was finished, Aisha went back to work, but something had loosened very slightly behind her ribs. She began to understand, without being told, that her mind had confused urgency with importance. Every email felt like an emergency. Every message felt like a fire. Her body had been in a state of preparation for an attack that never came, for years, without pause. Her brain, Kala Farida later explained one evening while chopping onions, had been designed to protect her from tigers in tall grass. It had not been designed for a phone that buzzed 40 times an hour, with news of tigers in other countries. "You are being asked to fear things you cannot even reach," Kala Farida said. "Of course you are tired." Aisha wrote this down that night. It was the first thing she had written in her personal notebook in almost a year. The next lesson came through a question. Kala Farida would ask it whenever Aisha began to spiral. She did not lecture, she did not correct. She would only say, "Biddy, is this something you can do something about right now?" If the answer was yes, Aisha would do it, and the anxiety would soften. If the answer was no, Farida would raise her eyebrows very slightly, and Aisha would understand. She began to notice how much of her worry was about things she could not touch. Conversations that had not happened, bills that were not yet due, opinions of people she had not seen in years. Slowly, she began setting them down, one imaginary weight at a time. She did not become a different person overnight. She had to be reminded, again and again, sometimes by her own body, that she was not required to solve tomorrow before dinner. But small things began to shift. She started a morning walk, 10 minutes at first, then 20, then 30, not to lose weight, not to improve her productivity, but only to move her body before her mind woke up. She began sleeping 7 hours instead of 5. She noticed that certain problems that had once terrified her at 3 in the morning looked ordinary, almost boring by 9. Her nights had been lying to her. She had believed them for years. She reorganized her working day. She stopped checking her email in the mornings. She replied twice a day at noon and at 5. She lost no clients, not one. She had built her entire anxious rhythm around the imaginary threat of losing them, and the threat had never existed. She began, quietly, to protect what she let into her mind. She stopped reading news that she could do nothing about. She unfollowed the accounts that had, she realized, been holding her stomach in a small, tight fist for years. She began reading books again. Slowly at first, 10 pages at a time. Her attention had been so shattered that it took months to feel like she could hold a story in her hands again. But her attention came back. Attention, she learned, was like a small animal. It could be retrained if you were patient. She built a small habit she called her quiet room. Every evening after work, for exactly 20 minutes, she sat on the balcony with no phone, no book, no task. She simply looked at the sky or at the trees or at the wall of the next building. She did not try to meditate. She did not try to be enlightened. She only sat. For the first 2 weeks, this felt unbearable. Her mind screamed at her. Then slowly it went quieter. The quiet room, she realized, had been inside her all along, and she had simply forgotten how to enter it. Farida stayed for 1 month, then 2, then went home. Aisha kept everything. The morning walk, the 2 email windows, the evening 20 minutes, the phone in the kitchen at night. The question, is this something I can do something about right now? The panic attacks did not vanish immediately. They came less often, and then rarely, and then, at some point Aisha could not identify precisely, they stopped. She noticed the absence one afternoon while paying for apples in the same supermarket where they had once ambushed her. She stood at the counter with her small basket and realized her breath was ordinary. Her hands were dry. The lights were only lights. She began to work better than she had worked in years. Not because she was working more, but because her mind, when she asked it to focus, actually did. She finished translations in half the time. She took on projects that interested her and turned down ones that did not. She started saying no without a paragraph of apology. She saved money for the first time in years, because she was no longer spending it on the small, numb comforts that had once been the only thing standing between her and her own thoughts. She began, quietly, to help others. A younger cousin who was crying on the phone about her university exams. A friend from her old office who was drinking too much. A neighbor's daughter who had begun having the same tightness in her chest that Aisha remembered too well. She did not lecture any of them. She only did small things. She left cups of tea. She took phones out of rooms. She asked gently, is this something you can do something about right now? She sat with them in silence. She told them, when they were ready to hear it, one sentence she had earned the hard way. Your mind is a room, she said. Open a window. The younger cousin did not understand at first. She was too anxious to hear it, but she remembered it. Months later, she called Aisha and said, only I opened the window today. Aisha understood. Years later, when someone asked her what had changed her life, she thought for a long time. She could have said many things: the walks, the mornings, the habits, the saying no, the saying yes to the right things, the small, quiet 20 minutes on the balcony that had somehow rebuilt her from the inside. But in the end, she gave the shortest possible answer because it was the truest. I stopped waiting for calm, she said.